o'clock plus a little bit. I'll call the meeting to order. It'll be two meetings tonight, a special town meeting and an annual town meeting. So there's quite a bit of business to get through. I would ask the Boy Scout Troop 44 if they would come forward to where I am. While they're coming, in the absence of the constable, I will ask the clerk, Leslie Haley, to read the attestation of service of the warrant on the townsfolk.
On behalf of Constable Reg Atkinson, the inhabitants of the town of Newbury who are qualified to vote were properly notified and warned of the date, time, and location of this meeting.
Thank you. We always begin town meeting with a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and I would like the Scouts of Troop 44 to lead us in that salute. Go ahead.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your service. While we're still getting started, because people are still coming in, I would like to introduce the members of the Board of Selectmen, and if each would stand when I call his name. Chairman J.R. Colby, Vice Chairman Damon Jesperson, Chuck Baer, Alicia Greco, and Jeff Walker. Thank you all. And I would like to introduce the members of the Finance Committee. The Chairman, Gene Case. The Vice Chairman, Erica Jacobson, who is temporarily, here she is, in the nick of time. Marshall Jesperson, Linda Allen, Larry Gay, Paul Mayette, and Frank Remley. I would like to take note at this meeting that Larry Gay, after many, many years, if not decades of service, yeoman service to the Finance Committee and to the town, because I've heard him speak so clearly on issues particularly related to the fire department, but on many other issues as well. He is taking retirement from the Finance Committee. It's a bad loss, but I'm hoping we'll see him still at town meeting and have the benefit of his great wisdom. So thank you very much. Then I would like to introduce the non-resident town employees who will be given permission to speak at this meeting, even though they are not residents. The usual rule is only residents can speak. Thank you very much. Okay. This is the first time, but let me say that the reason I'm holding the mic is I'm going to try to keep it near me and try not to let up, because I know in the past I have frequently done what I did just then, namely talk without the mic. Nobody could hear me. So when that happens, When you cannot hear me, just wave, yeah. I'll treat it as a point of order and correct myself immediately. And if I haven't corrected myself, it's because I haven't seen you waving. So wave more demonstrably. If necessary, stand on your chair and wave. Thank you very much. So I would like next to introduce those who will be speaking or who may be speaking. The first is our town council, Lisa Mead, Tracy Blaze, our town administrator, Eileen DeVoe, our town accountant, Michelle Branchiforti, the principal assessor, our chief of police, Mike Riley, Brian Forget, the superintendent of Triton Regional School, and Maureen Lynch, the superintendent, and Kara Cosmas, the business manager of Whittier Regional Voc Tech High School. Just a word about the role, my role at town meeting. Town meeting is the form of government that just develops naturally. The settlers developed when they first came to town, and they had no leaders. They had no form of government. There was no city council, no mayor. And so they simply met together, and they had to elect someone to act as chair for the meeting. So that's my role, to act as chair for the meeting. And I do what the chair normally does. He allows people to speak, gives them permission to speak, cuts them off if they speak too long. I do my best to keep it moving and to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak who wants to speak, but not to make it more difficult for everyone else by talking on endlessly after the subject has already been covered. So my role is simply, as they say, to moderate the meeting, and it's a modest role, but someone has to fill it. So, okay. So one other person who we want to add in the list of people, non-residents who may speak. It's Jeff Shaw, the context architecture, who will speak, I assume, relative to the town hall reservation progress. I would ask all of you to turn off your cell phones. Nothing is more disconcerting than cell phones to be ringing during town meeting. I have a need, we may have a need tonight for counters, for tellers. And I'm hoping that Bud Kelly is here. I saw Ben Armstrong come in. They have acted as tellers in the past, but I need at least 2 more. So I'd ask you to consider volunteering to be tellers, and I'd like to have you give, think about it, Ben, I saw you come in, didn't I? Where are you? Okay, Ben Armstrong, if you could raise your book again. I don't see Jeff, but anyone who wants to join in being a teller, if you could go see Ben, and he'll tell you generally what we do, and although you've seen it before, I think, at town meeting. But anyway, seriously, it's easy to do. It makes you help out with the running of the meeting, and it's a very much needed service. We really need 4 tellers in all. Okay? So please, if you go, just during the meeting, just go over, see Ben to be ready with a group of 4 if I need to call on tellers. I hope I will not. It always takes a lot of time. Now, we'll get to the warrant of the special town meeting. This is the thing that differentiates the items in the special town meeting from items in the annual town meeting is the items in the special town meeting relate to the use of the present fiscal year's money. The fiscal year will be running out, and it's a way by means of transfers and whatnot to supply money for needed projects. It's a way of avoiding spending too much money by having to appropriate too much money and have it go on the tax rate. Okay, so the first article is the next thing. An article is not it's not a motion. The article simply notifies the townspeople that the subject will come up. The floor will be open to debate on that subject. So nothing happens until somebody makes a motion that is germane to that article. So that's why I always begin by looking for a motion by somebody to start the debate of the article. Okay, so the first article, Article 1, relative to the police detail revolving account. Mr. Colby?
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $2,914.30 from free cash to the police detail revolving account.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Does anyone wish to speak on it? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion under Article 1 carries. Article 2.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $56,593 from the town hall sewer connection account to the town hall renovation account.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do I hear any discussion? Does anyone wish to talk? All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion under the article carries. Article 3, Mr. Bayer.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $100,000 from free cash and $150,000 from the fire station sewer connection account to the Scotland Road repair account.
Second.
Okay, the motion is made and seconded. Do I hear any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? No. Okay, the ayes have it.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $350,000 from the sale of land fund and authorize the Board of Selectmen to purchase the property located at 31 Plum Island Boulevard and enter into any and all agreements necessary to carry out this article.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Does anyone wish to address the meeting on the subject? If not, okay. No? You're the first one up.
Jim Moran, Elm Street. I'm opposed to this. I believe the amount of money of $350,000 is outrageous. That's a cost of $10 million an acre. It's a 1,500 square foot piece of property. and the building effectively have to be torn down for anything to be done there. It's in a terrible location to put bathrooms. It's across the street. I just can't conceive that the town will move ahead with this. Just wanted to voice that. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone wish to reply? Anyone else wish to be heard on the subject? Okay, Mr. Jesperson.
This property has been assessed. It is the assessed value. It's not a choice of ours about how much the property is worth. That's its market value. As far as its location, it serves the town extremely well to purchase this property, to have the right of first refusal on the parking lot. We've spent years looking at how to provide the town with services in that area. We had years of abuse of the porta potties, Center Island. We had a committee that worked diligently for years on a very fractious issue to try and find a solution. We are now moving towards that solution. This is what we have. If we had our way, we might buy a different building, but this is the one we can get, and it will serve the needs of the town, and it will do so at a reasonable cost. Much as Jim does not agree with that. It is an option for the town to solve the town's needs, and it's the one we have.
Thank you, Mr. Jesperson. Is anyone else, sir? Why don't you come up and be next in line after him? No, I'm sorry, I called the fellow behind you. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Good evening, David Dempsey, 846th Street, Newbury, Plum Island. I spoke in favor of this the last time it came up. I made some suggestions on how to expand for this. I think it's really a no-brainer. Financially, if you look at the Finance Committee, it's a $350,000 piece of property in the middle of Plum Island. There's a piece of property at 16 Plum Island Boulevard that is a tear down in one lot that's on the market for $400,000 as we stand here tonight, right across the street. To me, I'm looking at it and saying, just from a financial point of view, if the town purchases this piece of property and does nothing, in 2 years, this piece of property will be worth close to $500,000. And if the option of buying the property, the parking lot next door, long-term, can return the revenue to this town just by having parking lots. Down at the other end, Newburyport charges $10 a car for that parking lot. There's a possibility of not only having a facility that the residents of Plum Island not only need but deserve. I think we pay a substantial amount of the tax revenue to the town of Newbury for the properties that we own, of which I own 4 pieces of property on the island with my family. So I think it's time that the people of Plum Island not only get a bathroom, but get a little more than a bathroom, maybe get an emergency facility, maybe a police annex in time. But the purchase of this property is vital for that area. I think the people of Plum Island are sick and tired of seeing Jiffy John's in their beach, and you go down the other end and Newburyport has a bathroom facility, has a parking lot, and people drive by our facility and we see porta potties that are overflowing. We see a dumpster that's full of trash that doesn't get dumped on time, and it's a disgrace, it's an embarrassment, and I think my taxpayers' dollars deserve more, and I think the people of Plum Island deserve more. I'm very much in favor of this, and I think we all should be.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I'm Sarah Seaver Ward. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wish to support very much this article. I think that the ocean is for all to take care of the ocean as well by not having overflowing bathrooms. So with a well-built, well-maintained, there'll be people that can really participate. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know your view. Anyone else wish to be heard, Mr. Management?
I'm Steve Flangin on 14th Street, and I speak in opposition to the proposal for 4 reasons. One, I think typically one gets 3 assessments on properties, not one. I think $350 is much too high a price to pay. Number 2, at times I think I should do things other with my time than listen to a finance committee meeting, but at one of the finance committee meetings, one of the members, whose name I won't cite, pointed out how before this project goes through, one should look at the total cost, not just the buying of the property, but what's the renovation cost, what's the O&M, what are all the ancillary costs that go with it, so we know that what we're buying into. Further, at that meeting, mention was made of how this will end up promoting tourism on the island. I found myself scratching my head over that one, since most of the businesses on Plum Island, with the exception of the parking lots, already provide facilities for their users. I'm thinking of places like the Plum Island Grill, which has a bathroom, the Beachcomb, which has a bathroom for their users. So I don't really see the need to promote tourism to begin with, or how this will promote the use of tourism. And finally, I think we need to talk about O&M costs, whether it be porta potties or a real toilet. There's going to be a lot of O&M costs built into this. Some of that alludes back to that Finance Committee meeting that I mentioned earlier. But my experience is that public toilets can be trashed quite a bit, and that's going to be a very big expense for the town, particularly when you consider water and sewer costs, a subject that we on Plum Island are very much familiar with. So I speak in opposition to this proposal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mangin. Mr. Thurlow?
Fred Thurlow, 26 Marsh Avenue. I also am opposed to this. First of all, I'll address the cost. $350,000 for 1,300 and something square feet is absolutely ridiculous. If he's got according to the paper, he's got somebody all ready to purchase it, I say, you got a sucker, let him have it. This is ridiculous. It's on the wrong side of the street. You've got to cross the street to get to it, cross the street to get back. The toilets belong on the property that the town owns now. Just put them over there. This site floods. It flooded in the big storm, in the first big storm in January. It's a lousy site. And I'm not going to go through a lot of this other stuff because people have already addressed it. But it's one thing for private individuals to build in high-risk areas such as this, but the town should not be risking public funds on this site. Thank you.
Mr. Thurlow, Mr. Jesperson, Mr. Baer.
Yes. As
Says in the article, the money is coming from the land sales account. The good part about this is it does not come out of the operating budget, and it does not raise taxes. The money's sitting there in the account. With your vote tonight, we can pay for it. So, thank you.
Thank you. There's someone before you.
Okay, I'd like to rebut that subject, but okay.
Yeah, you can rebut it, of course. Sir?
Peter Erickson, 48 Northern Boulevard. I served on the Plum Island Study Committee. There were 2 reports. The majority report, 4 of the 5 members supported having full-time toilets on the island, as well as trash removal and dog waste and parking and street lights and a lot of things. And first thing I want to do is thank the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen for really acting on some of these things. We've seen some great improvements there, and it's made life on the island really a lot better, especially during the busy times of the year. There's a dissenting report, which was submitted by one member that you've already heard from. I cannot speak to that. I can only speak to the majority report. The fact is that people are already coming to Plum Island. Our majority report was in favor of really accommodating people who come. One of the things we found out during that study was this Plum Island traffic and parking study, Town of Newbury. I'll give you some traffic counts. The study reports that to the east of the Plum Island Bridge, 5,700 vehicles were counted on a Saturday. And this was
during October and November. There's a lot of traffic there. 12,000 vehicles were counted on a Saturday in July. 12,800 vehicles were counted on a Sunday in July. People have already discovered Plum Island. Now, the study goes on to say that of those numbers, only about 8,000 made it to Northern Boulevard. So 4,000 cars on an average Saturday, let's say, don't even make it to Northern Boulevard. The argument has been made that this is a bad location for the toilets because people have to cross Northern Boulevard. Well, virtually all of the public parking on Plum Island is on the opposite side of Northern Boulevard from the street. So virtually anybody who wants to go to the beach has to walk past the toilets, past the proposed location for the toilets, cross Northern Boulevard, and do the same thing coming back. So the argument that it's a bad site for reasons of traffic is a red herring. We'd really like to see something done there, and with these numbers coming, you can understand why those cheap porta potties are overflowing on a Monday morning. Anybody who questions this, please go there on this summer on a Monday morning and see the condition of those toilets. With this kind of traffic, this is exactly what you can expect. Now, let me just mention one other thing quickly. Okay. I had the opportunity of spending some time in Florida over the past winter, and past couple of years, where all of these services are provided. And the good news is that when you provide the services, people take care of things. It's just a fact of life. I've talked to the people who are in charge of the facilities down there, and they say the town provides the basic service. They trust the town is going to keep up with the services. All kinds of other organizations pitch in, and suddenly people start taking care of things because it's the right thing to do. I have faith in the people who use Plum Island, and I think that if the town continues to do the right thing, that everybody will go along with it, and we'll have better, cleaner facilities there. So I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thurlow, you want to see about something?
Yeah, now I got something else to rebut also, but number one, in regards to Chuck Bear's comment, where did a lot of that money come from? It came from sale of the piece at the south end of the island, which was a large piece of land, which, by the way, was high and dry. Nice site. But the town sought to sell that and get off of the island, which was probably a good idea. What was his subject there? Oh, he's got faith that people will come forth and make it nice and neat and clean, and I am just the opposite. I know what's going to happen with it. It's going to get trashed, just like Newburyport's gets trashed. And it'll be sprayed with graffiti. It'll be a mess.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thurlow. No, I think we've,
One thing I want to clarify for everyone, there have been some misconceptions about state aid. In conversations with Senator Bruce Tarr, he's very confident he can get us help with these bathrooms. What he's not confident about is getting help for a standalone bathroom or new construction bathroom at Center Island. The problem with putting it in the original location that a lot of folks thought it would end up at is it's a V zone. It's a sustained straight wave action. And basically that's a no-go, when it comes to building, especially on a municipal or a state level. Also in conversations with Senator Tarr, to get state aid basically for the retrofit and outfitting of the bathrooms, it's very important that it's twofold with something else, and having the first right of refusal on the parking lot is huge, and that shows the state that we're trying to tackle two problems with one stone, and having those stacked up is very important in getting aid from the state. Like Selectman Bear said, we have this land sale money in this account. There are very few things we can do with it. We have the money to do this, and we have our senators standing at the ready to help us if we do it right. And I think it's time to stop treating Plum Island like a third world country. Let's give them a bathroom.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Well, I met with Bruce Tarr with everybody yesterday, and he said he would support anything we did And anything that the town did, he would support, no matter what type of bathroom it was. Let's just make that clear.
Ron, make it clear that he said it was very, very helpful and important that it's linked with another use too.
No, he didn't, that was his name, he said, I will support anything that you do.
Well, we've heard two versions of the conversation.
Doug and I were just talking about it.
I'm going to call the question now. I think we've heard both sides. No, you've already talked. What? Yep. I'm sorry. Yes, Erica.
Hi. Speaking on behalf of the majority of the Finance Committee, one of the things that we see in the right of first refusal of that parking lot is that it sets us up to have this become a part of the town that can actually be a revenue generating place. When we can generate the revenues, we can then generate expenses to go along with them, such as returning lifeguards and other services to the island. So that's where the right of first refusal on the parking lot makes this an attractive long-term investment for the town. It also is not seen as promoting tourism, rather supporting the level of that is being used at Plum Island right now. Those are lots already, they see good traffic, and the points about the traffic flow and people crossing the street is something that was definitely be built into the plans. However, we do see this as a long-term investment in the town in order to bring back services that have been asked for, and we're part of that study. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Erica. Okay, now I'm calling the question. I don't want to hear rehashes.
It's unconscionable that the town won't let the public rebut what the committees are saying. I don't understand how that can be.
Well, I think we've heard quite a bit of rebuttal.
I think I've heard JR talk and another talk, and I don't think we're going to...
Well, my point is, we've also heard you talk, sir, and I've given preference to new people in the debate. So I'm calling the question now. All those in favor of the motion, that is, in favor of the transfer from the sale of land fund and the authorization to the Board of Selectmen to purchase 31 Plum Island Boulevard. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. That's, while the nays are loud, I can hear that is a majority. Do we need 2/3? Oh, we need 2/3 for this vote. So I'm going to have a standing count. Now, Ben has, good. We've got two counters, 3. Okay, our usual procedure. Oh, thank you very much. Someone's asked for a door into 2. So, yeah. By the way, we need, when the counters come in, give your names. When the counters come in, please give your names. Now go ahead and do the count. The way we usually do it is I will ask for all those on one side or the other to rise. The counter will usually then tell a row to sit down after the row has been counted. Okay? I think this is a procedure you've been through before. Also, people who are not in seats in the center sections or in the back sections, people who are not in seats do not get counted. Okay? So if you have your proper star on the back of your hand, and you wish to be counted, simply grab an empty seat. Then you can go back to your perch off to the side. Okay, has everyone got a seat who wants to be counted? Okay, I'm going to do this in reverse. All those opposed to the motion, that is, all those who oppose the purchase of the property, please rise. Okay, the instructions are people who are not in one of the seats. Okay. What I'm calling for first is a vote of all those who are opposed to the project. So all the nays stand. Okay? We'll start the count again in view of the confusion. The counter will usually tell you to sit down when he's counted you. Are all the counters in?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of the purchase of 31 Plum Island Boulevard, please rise.
You guys can sit down. Thank you.
This is 2/3.
I know. Sorry.
The vote is 273 in favor to 90 opposed, and the motion carries.
Mr. Moderator, I would just like to thank everyone that came tonight and supported this. Plum Island is a hidden jewel, and I really appreciate the vote of confidence that we can work with the state and keep that little jewel that belongs to Newbury moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Okay, we're into Article 5 now of the special town meeting. Mr. Walker? No, Mr. Jesperson.
I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $130,000 from the free cash to purchase from National Grid and convert the existing streetlights to energy efficient and long-lasting LEDs.
Second.
Let me clarify, that was $130,000?
Yes.
Okay, notice the warrant said $200,000, but a vote to do $130,000 is within the scope of that. So that's a legal motion. All those have we had a second? Yes. We have had a second. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. All those opposed say nay. And the ayes have it. The motion under Article 5 carries. Article 6. And it's Mr. Colby.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a lease purchase agreement for the lease and purchase of 2 fire trucks, a pumper and a ladder truck for a period of 10 years on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deem in the best interest of the town, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to take all actions necessary to administer and implement such agreement, and to fund said lease purchase through an annual appropriation in the fire department capital outlay account.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes. Is there a cost associated with this?
I would ask Mr. Colby, the question is there a cost associated with this?
And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We already appropriated the money last spring. This is to enter into the lease, basically, right? Yes. All right. So at previous town meeting, we appropriated the money, and this is basically a finality to enter into the lease.
I think we need town meeting authorization to enter into a lease, and that authorization has to be by a 2/3 vote. We probably do not need to count. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Into Article 7.
I move that the town vote to take no action on the article at this time.
Motion's been made and seconded. The article is simply passed over. Article 8. Is that the one we passed over? Article 8. Relative to the unused portion of the borrowing for the transfer station. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the town vote to rescind the unissued portion of the borrowing authorized at June 24, 2003 special town meeting in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Can you explain that in English?
Yeah, there's apparently as I understand it, previously we authorized a borrowing, and it's been unnecessary to use $60,000 of that borrowing. So this is a way of getting rid of the authorization. So I remember there was an administration down at the State House in the old days that went around to all the unused appropriation bills, amassed them all, and funded a project that was never authorized. So it's good to get rid of these things. So all those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. That the motion carries under Article 8, and that's the end of the special town meeting. And we'll go now into the annual town meeting. And I would ask the town clerk to, for the record, repeat the certification of proper notice.
On behalf of Constable Reg Atkinson, the inhabitants of the town of Newbury who are qualified to vote were properly notified and warned of the date, time, and location of this meeting.
Thank you, Ms. So we've had a proper return of service for the record, and we can go right away to Article 1. Article 1 is for information only. It simply informs the townspeople that we will be voting in the town election on Tuesday, May 8, for the following positions, the terms for which have expired or in which there is a vacancy. You already have the list of those positions, so I do not think I need to read them to you. In addition, there will appear on the town budget, on the ballot, the question whether we approve the override. We won't debate that at this time because this is simply its appearance on the ballot. We have to authorize the override at town meeting, but that's the subject of Article 11. So if Article 11 fails to pass, then the question either won't appear or will be null and void. Oh, really? Oh, we did that once. Yeah, I stand corrected by town council, who reminds me that we could still get the sense of the town's view, whether the town is in favor of the override. But it needs to, the override will need to pass both the town by way of the ballot and the town meeting will have to also approve it. But that'll come up in Article 11. So we move on to Article 2, which is to receive the reports of various committees and groups. And there are 3 people who are going to speak very, very briefly to you, presenting the highlight of their reports. The first has to do with the Municipal Building Committee, Mr. Eric Svahn, and also the architect for the project.
You mind if I turn this around and talk to the audience?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Svahn, 14 Old Farm Way, Newbury. Actually, I have 2 very quick reports from you. The first report is for the Owner's Project Manager and Designer Selection Committee. This is the final report of that committee. The previous committee was charged with following the state laws for procurement of the designer's services, and it needed to follow the state law because the project for the town hall and the police station project is over 1.5 million. So in that process, it's a qualifications process. The committee created an advertisement. They created the outline for the project. We advertised. We've received about 25 inquiries on the project. We received about 8 qualified submissions. We reviewed those, we shortlisted it to 4, we held interviews, and we selected Vertex as our owner's project manager. The state thinks for larger construction type projects that municipalities should have somebody who's an outside that helps guide the project. So Vertex is our owner's project manager. Then the same process was held to select the designer team. And when we say designer team, we say architect and all the engineers, the mechanical engineers, the civil engineer, the structural engineer, the whole package of designers. We received 6 qualified submissions, shortlisted it to 3, and selected the firm of Context Architecture with a unanimous vote. So I'd like to thank the resident committee members, Dick Bisseri, Otto Kinzer, and John Keller for their volunteer work on that committee. It was a lot of heavy lifting to create the advertisement to make sure that we were following the exact guidelines for the law. So that's the end of the OPM Designer Selection Committee report. So now we have a new committee, which is the Building Committee, and that committee is charged with following the design process and the construction process for those 2 projects. So here tonight, I have Jeff Shaw from Context Architecture. He's our selected architect. He's the lead consultant entity firm that's guiding the design project. And so I'd like Jeff to have just a few quick words on programming, typical project schedules, and maybe current projects and construction trends. This isn't a question and answer. We're not presenting anything to debate tonight. We're just giving you a report. If you'd like to follow along, the building committee has a committee address on the town website. Our meetings will be posted there. We will be having frequent meetings very shortly, so please look at the schedule and please attend. Thanks.
I recognize Mr. Jeff Shaw.
Thank you for having me this evening, allowing me to speak. Again, my name is Jeff Shaw. I'm principal at Context Architecture. Our firm has done over 4 dozen public safety type projects in the state and in Maine. They range from projects on the South Shore up through Whitman, Weston, Southborough, all over the place, Burlington, North Andover. So we're very familiar with this project type and lots of different types of communities, including some just like yours. We've started the project already. We've met with the police chief, the fire chief, and town administration and staff to start what's called space needs programming, which is we analyze the spaces that are currently available in the buildings that you have, as well as industry trends with these types of projects, and evaluate what these actual space needs going forward, looking out into the future, might be. We've also analyzed the buildings, the existing structures that are there, town hall, fire station, and the land that's available for the police station. What we will be doing in the next stages is starting a full-fledged design process with, as Eric mentioned, a full design team of engineers, going from concept design all the way through design development and completing with biddable bid documents to receive hard bids from contractors through the public procurement process. That process is a very typical process for a construction project like this, and it usually takes 8 months, 10 months or so to go forward. Throughout that process, as Eric mentioned, we expect to have many, many meetings with the town, with the committee, and fully vet all of the decisions that are being made, one of which is budget and construction cost. And as we follow the construction market over the years, this is a pretty hot market that we're in right now. We don't usually see decreases in construction prices. So one of the good things that you're doing is moving this process along steadily and quickly, because that's the best benefit to achieving the lowest construction cost in the end, is to move it forward. So I appreciate your time tonight. Again, I hope to see some of you as we move forward, and we'll be completing the process.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. For the Finance Committee, Erica Jacobson, who's the Vice Chairman.
Thank you for coming tonight. Just if people want to know, from up here we can see there's a lot of spots in the bleachers over here. If you'd like a seat, feel free to take one. I'm here to give a very quick and dirty overview of the town finances for this year to kind of set up where we are so that you have a good sense of what we are proposing in many of these instances tonight. And there we go. Our members of our finance committee have already been introduced. Our budget for this year comes out just at $19.4 million. It's up from $18.9 from last year. The biggest drivers, as we'll get into it, you'll see that this shows our last 5 years of the town's budget. That's our total budget going through the years. Like I said, this is going to be quick. We have our projected revenues come in. This pie chart, I've been doing this for 7 years now. This pie chart doesn't change. Property taxes are our biggest source of revenue. They make up 75%. One place where we have seen it's increasing just slightly, but down from more than $5 million in 2003 is state aid. Our state aid number is less than $900,000. So if you think we can rely on state to come in and save us with our projects, we definitely don't have that situation today. It's slowly creeping back up, but not at a rate that is ever going to come back to that $5 million mark. On the expense side, again, our operating expenses have to match our revenues. So we budget to that. And this pie chart also changes very little. I looked at this versus last year. Education is absolutely steady at 52% of our budget. I remind everyone that our education budget is not simply Triton. It also includes Whittier and the Essex Technical and Agricultural School. Each of those, Whittier saw an increase of more than $40,000 in its budget, and Essex saw an increase of $60,000. So that was $100,000 from those two schools alone. In top of the situation with Triton, we have increased our spending over last year by $300,000 in our operating budget. The area that went down this year was benefits insurance went from 9% to 8% because we've had a really good insurance year. So that's a positive. That's not something we've seen in past years where insurance actually goes down. To give you a sense of our funds, we have 4 funds where money comes from outside of our operating. We have free cash, we have stabilization, land sale, and the reserve fund. Each of these has its own rules about what it can be spent on and how you should use it. Our free cash is money that's derived from the collection of taxes, revenues, and is in excess of their initial budgets. The only way to get money out of this free cash account is for the majority of town meeting to vote it out. So nobody can touch it unless we vote on it here tonight. Stabilization. This is where we actually take money from our operating budget, we allocate it to stabilization, basically a savings account to use for ongoing expenses, big expenses, capital expenses. So you'll see a transfer in tonight into stabilization, and then a few expenditures out of stabilization. Land sale, we have already talked about that this evening. This 408,875 was prior to the vote to purchase the property on Plum Island, so that fund will be coming down. And the reserve fund is basically one that is set up each year. Money goes into it as part of the operating budget, and the only people who can vote to use it comes before the finance committee. We review it, and that is for emergency situations, to fund those repairs that must be made immediately. A few years ago, it was like the steps at the Grange Hall, different things like that, and that's how those get allocated. That's the only funds that do not come out voted here at town meeting. If every item passes tonight, here's where our line items will look in each of those funds. We'll have, as you can see, the land sale was showing that if we did use it, it would come down to $58,875. The big item on our agenda, we are not talking about this in depth right now, but I did want to introduce it and provide a little bit of clarity to the Article 11, which is an override to support the Triton Regional School District budget for the fiscal year of 2019. Basically, this is a 2-step process, just as a quick refresher to anyone who's been through this. For every time that we are going to raise taxes and pay for something, there are 2 votes. There's always one vote to raise the money, which is on the ballot. That is a simple majority raised on the ballot. People vote on election day, which is May 8th. What we are doing tonight is we're voting the appropriation. We're giving the town the approval to spend that money. We can only spend the money if we raise it at the polls. So it's a two-step process. Also, I had someone ask me about when does this roll off? And I'd like to remind everybody that this is a Prop 2.5 general override. And it is most often used when additional revenue is sought to fund an annual operating budget. We don't like to take funds out of like free cash, something for a one-time, and use that in an operating budget. It's fiscally irresponsible. So once approved, the override amount becomes a permanent part of the levy limit and increases by 2.5% each year after its acceptance. The override revenue is earmarked for specific purposes in the first year it's available, but in subsequent years it becomes an indistinguishable part of the revenue base. So this is helping us to raise our levy capacity so that we can continue to have the funds going forward. So tonight, that's a little bit of the how and why you'll see this both here and on the ballot. Just to give you a sense, I went back and put together, so you can see that over the past few years, Triton assessments for Newbury have gone down. Some people like to call this getting lucky, but financially, it's a great thing. It has helped our town a lot because we've been able to use the revenues to fund other town services. This year, our total increase has gone up by $659,790. $300,000 is being funded through the operating budget. The difference is the override, that $359,770. What does this mean to my taxes, which is always the burning question? So our average valuation here in Newbury in a home is $493,465. This is what your taxes are based off of. So when you look on your tax bill, you look at your assessment. If your number is lower than this, the impact will be less. The average impact on this house would be $122 a year, or $30.50 a quarter. If your home is valued at less than $493, it'll be less. If it's valued at more than $493, it'll be more. That's it, folks. Quick and dirty, let's get on to the voting.
I would like to thank Erica very much for a really very lucid presentation of the override, which will be coming up when we get to Article 11, and for the general status of the town funds. The Finance Committee has done an exceptional job this year, as it has every year for all the years that I've been paying attention. Okay, this is Article 3, and it was to accept the town reports. Article 2, to accept the town reports. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a motion?
I move that the town vote to accept the reports of town offices, boards, and committees as printed in the 2017 town report without ratification or authorization of any action.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Article 3 is relative to the compensation of certain officers. Mr. Jesperson.
I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of the elected officers as listed in Article 3.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 4. Now, this is the budget. This is the budget for the next fiscal year coming up, the one that begins, July 1? And we're changing the method this year of presenting the budget to town meeting. We're presenting it in blocks representing the groupings of the expenditures so that, for example, under the third block, education, will be all of the expenses related to education. And so the way that we'll handle, what we used to do was read every item, and they went on for page after page after page. This year, what we will do is ask you, I will read through the several blocks. There are 8 of them in all. If you have a question or objection, if you wish to be heard with respect to any of the items under that block, you will say hold. And I will ask you as to which item under that block you wish to be heard on. And we will make a note of that and then pass on to the next block, public safety. So, and we'll go through the same process. So first, we don't have a motion yet, do we? Okay, we need a motion.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum $18,810,146 and take from special assessment fund the sum of $600,175 as set forth in Article 4 to fund the operation of the town in the fiscal year 2019.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded, and the budget for the next fiscal year, is it fiscal year 19, 2019, is on the floor. I would read first the appropriation for general government expenditures is $2,008,925. Is there any hold on that? Yep. Is Mr. Thurlow, and which item under the general government do you wish to be heard on? You won't be heard now, just specify which. Yeah.
My question is, there's no comparison here. You always give a comparison last year to this year. There's no comparison on any of these. Why is that? There's no comparison on this chart here. It should be on this chart here so we can see it.
Well, I think you can see it by looking in the 2 places. This is just...
Mr. Moderator?
Yep, okay.
Marshall Jesperson, Finance Committee.
Yes, Mr. Jesperson.
With all due respect, Fred, we have changed some of the format to try and move things along. However, we did include all of the information in the packet for everyone so they could make those comparisons and representations to say that it's where it should be. That's what we determined, but we determined also to provide you all the information that would be necessary. Thank you.
Next year, I want to see it here.
Okay. Okay, on the subject of the appropriation for general government, as I read before, the $2,008,925. Does anyone wish to place a hold on that? Okay. I'm sorry? Okay. Do you wish on any of the items under the general government expenditures, do you wish to be heard? Which item? Can you give the number of it? Say that again. 33? Okay, thank you. We'll come back to it at the end. Okay? Move on to the expenditures for public safety, $2,974,782. Does anyone wish to be heard on that item? Move on to education. Education is $9,759,511. Does anyone wish to be heard on that subject? You're putting a hold? And which Okay, a hold has been put on the Triton Regional Operating Assessment. We'll come back to that. On the DPW, $1,267,376. Does anyone wish to be heard on that? The next is Human Services, $301,400. The next is Culture and Recreation, $272,606. The Debt Service Appropriation, $1,158,181. And finally, the appropriation for benefits, $1,667,540. Does anyone wish to be heard on that? We'll go back then to the holds. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just a quick explanation. What's the difference between the selectmen's stipend and the salaries and wages?
Okay. The question is the difference between the selectmen's salaries and the selectmen's stipend and...
I'm not in the back of the book right now. Do both add up to 7,500? What is then I got to get to the back of that.
The difference is the stipend that we get versus the staff who support the town, such as Ellen Jameson. And that's really, she's the one who does all the office work for us. So it's her salary, her benefits, and expenses related to the office.
Okay.
And if I might, Mr. Moderator, speaking to Plum Island Beach Management Plan, the increase there is because we have increased the purchase of emergency sand and provided more money for beach cleaning. So the increase there is due to those needs. We've had a number of washouts on the island and we felt it was imperative to have more sand on hand when we have some of these storms. So that is why the allocation has increased.
Where's the next hold?
It's the 78th, the Triton Regional Assessment.
Right. Okay, the next hold is on 78, the Triton Regional Operating Assessment. And what is the question? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really not good.
I think, good for you. That should be just right.
I'm Margaret Thomas from 14 Columbia Way. My questions have to do with, and I'm sorry if this has all been in the paper, but I haven't seen a lot of it. Number one is, what's our population of students over the 17 to 18, so we know whether that's up or down? And second, what happens if we don't pass this?
The number of students that Newbury has is 704. Total number of students the district equation is based on is 2,392. And our portion is, it's not completely driven by the number of students. There's a complex state formula behind it, but Newbury's contribution is the lowest of the 3 towns because we due in part to the fact that we have the lowest proportion of students.
Has our volume increased year over year?
No.
Has it decreased?
Yes, in the last couple of years, but it's decreased by like 2 or 3. It's not a statistical significance.
I'm sorry.
This is not the override.
I'm sorry, what is the question again?
The question is if we don't pass the override, what happens?
This is not the override, just to be clear. This is the operating budget. This is the number that has already been taken out of the operating budget. If we do not pass the override here, but it passes at the polls, our Board of Selectmen could call another town meeting to see if we would then pass the appropriation. If 2 out of the 3 towns vote the budget, the 3rd town has to pay. And if we do not vote if it does not pass at the polls, and it passes here, and the other 2 towns pass it and we have to pay, it will require cuts of our budget.
Now, in other words, the override is not included in the budget we're talking about now. This is our regular.
I'm just trying to understand the impact of not passing this to the students, to the town. So if I understand what you're saying is if there's 3 towns, if 2 of the 3 towns say yes, then we all have to do it.
Yes.
If all 3 of them say no or 2 say no, what happens to the school?
In this case, I turn it over to Mr. Forget, our superintendent, that would talk about the level of devastation this would have on our schools.
Okay, Mr. Forget. Yes, no, I think we'll talk about it now.
Okay,
Because
so I grab the mic.
we may have to repeat it again when we get to Article 11.
So I'm happy to talk whenever. I'm going to talk now, or do you want to talk under 11?
That's, you're willing to, wait, okay. So we'll do it when we get to Article 11. Are there any other holds? Okay. There are no more holds on any part of the budget. Does anyone wish to be heard in general? Does anyone wish to be heard before we take the vote on the budget? No? Okay, all those in favor of the town budget as put forward in Article 4, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes have it overwhelmingly.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to be added to the stabilization fund.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Article 6 to Mr. Walker.
I wanted everyone to know that I'm still here. I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to other post-employment benefits trust account.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? The ayes have it overwhelmingly. And to Article 7, relative to the town hall lease, Mr. Colby.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $162,000 from free cash to lease and pay the utilities for the town hall operations at 12 Kent Way.
Here a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. We're up to Article 8. Article 8, relative to stormwater management, Mr. Jesperson.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $25,000 from free cash to the stormwater management account.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject?
Mike Bowling, Forest Street. I'm just wondering why it went up so much from last year. Line item number 31. The last 2 years from 5,000 low. Why is it going to 20?
Could you hear the question? I found it difficult.
The increase is due to the fact that we're going to be expected to meet some new standards very soon. And so we're preparing for what is going to be a large expense for the town within the next couple of years. There's a new permitting process that is going to be required by the federal government, and we need to be able to meet those standards. And so we've been spending a number of years, Concom and John O'Connelly have put in a tremendous amount of effort to make us prepared for this, and we're just making sure we're properly funded to handle it when it does actually happen.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 9.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $112,000 from the Receipts Reserved Cable Television PEG Access Special Revenue Fund to support the PEG Access service and programming.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Article 10, relative to funding for the harbor master activities. Mr. Baer.
I move that the town vote to authorize that the total expenditures for the following revolving funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018 be expended in accordance with the bylaw approved under Article 14 of the annual town meeting held on 4/25/17. The Recreation Revolving Fund, $50,000. Municipal Waterway Improvement and Maintenance Fund, $54,310.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. And we're up to Article 11, which is the article relative to the Triton override. And need to have a motion first. Mr. Walker.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $359,790 for the purpose of paying its full assessed share of the Triton Regional School District budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019, required to fully fund the assessment and thereby approve the district's budget for that year, provided that such additional appropriations be contingent on approval of a levy limit override question under Massachusetts General Law 59, Section 29C.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. I will call, well, first let me see, does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? Okay, well, let's call upon Superintendent Forget, who was prepared to speak on it before, and he will give us an explanation as to what it's for and what happens if we do not approve it.
Correct. Thank you. So this is complicated because this is a three-town vote. So first, as far as the mechanics, and I believe this has been explained, if it fails in Newbury but does pass in Salisbury and Rowley, the district does have an approved budget. The committee then has to make a decision from that point whether to proceed with that budget, which therefore leaves the town with a bill that they're not prepared to pay, or take action to come back with another budget. If the budget does fail, the structure of the warrant funds a base amount, but if the total appropriation that was assessed to the town is not approved by this town meeting, then ultimately the vote is not passed. So if the vote does not pass, the committee has to take that discussion back up. The schedule has the final town meeting happening in Salisbury on Monday, May 14th. The committee is scheduled to meet on Wednesday, May 16th, and I would be prepared at that time to provide a recommendation to the committee. There has been no determination of the exact dollar amount that would have to be reduced further. The first tentative budget, which is what it's called, was approved on February 14th. That budget was over $3 million in increases. In between February 14th and March 14th, which was the final budget, which is the number that was provided to the towns, we reduced the budget by $751,000. To get to a number that we believe would be in the ballpark of assessments where they have been in the recent past, we would need to cut another $1 to $1.1 million. I do not have a list for you yet. The committee has not heard a list as of yet. We're in the process of developing that. I can tell you the current list has over 20 to 22 individuals that are on that list. There is absolutely an impact that would be felt across the board, in the classroom, after school, other enrichment activities. We were looking as much as possible to mitigate that and minimize that, and I think we were able to do that with the final budget. But it is important to note that even with the final budget as presented and provided to the towns, there's already a reduction of 2.6, call it 2.5 teachers at the high school, and some other reductions that have been made in recent years that we were not able to restore. One thing I do want to make clear, it's been a lot, if you are a social media person, there has been a lot of discussion on social media, perhaps in other towns more than this town specifically with specific pages, but there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that are we going to have to do this again next year? Is the budget just going to continue to increase between $2 and $3 million every single year? The reality is that the teachers' contracts and all of the costs that we have incurred over the recent years, there are not any exorbitant costs that are taking effect or coming into play next year that haven't been in play in recent years. The reality is we were, due to things that we can't control, for special education alone, there was $1.2 million in increase in the final budget, or I'm sorry, in the tentative budget. That came down to about $1 million in the final budget. Those are services that students deserve, need, and we have a moral imperative to provide those, and actually a legal requirement to provide those. So in order to do that, it requires funding, which is a perfect opportunity. Senator Tarr is here to pass the buck to the state. but I don't see him right here, but I did see Senator Tarr in the House this evening. We have a lot of work to do to convince the state. I heard Erica talk about the fact that it was once $5 million that the town received in state aid and is now receiving $900,000. In fiscal 19, with the projected Chapter 70, which is our education aid from the state, we're projected to receive about $200,000 less than we received in 2002. So 17 years later, the amount of money coming from the state has actually been reduced. If you look at our costs have increased from 2002 to 2017. Our costs increased 51%. Of that cost, almost 30% of that was attributed to healthcare costs and special education costs. Again, both of them are a must. Both of them are things that every school, healthcare is something every town is dealing with. Thankfully, it sounds like the town had a good year this year. Which leaves another 21% in total actual spending increases over 15 years. I would argue that is not exorbitant to average under 2% per year for an increase in our actual expenditures. However, when the state is failing to fulfill its promise to fund education, that is borne by you as the taxpayers. So we, collectively, everyone in this room, everyone in the town meeting in Salisbury and Newbury and Rowley and every other community in the state needs to spend time educating our legislators who are willing. Our legislative corps is very willing to fight on our behalf, but there are a lot of folks who don't understand the challenges of regional finance laws and the impact that it has. Namely that we have, again, going back to that statistic, that over 17 years we're still receiving $200,000 less than we did 17 years ago. So my point here is we certainly have work to do with the state, but there's also other factors in play that aren't necessarily a factor of just increased expenditures. Some of the statistics that were put up there as far as the decreased assessment to the town of Newbury over the last 3 years, that's certainly a function of decreased enrollment. Actually, enrollment stayed remarkably static this year, which hasn't happened in a long time. But that in combination with the state formula, again, that same broken formula that isn't giving us the aid, has as Erica described it, a very complicated formula of how that's allocated. So even if I came to the committee and presented a level funded budget that doesn't spend $1 more, in years past, that's shifted spending from other towns or from Newbury to other towns. It's not Newbury's fault, it's not Rowley's fault, it's not Salisbury's fault, it's the formula's fault. So, message here, we have work to do with the state. There's motivation. Tomorrow's Day on the Hill. I'm spending the day on the Hill. I know Dan Valiente, school committee member, and others from other towns will be at the State House for the day, doing our job to get every dollar we can. But in the short term, the answer is we're looking at another $1 million to $1.1 million to get to a number that the towns could afford. And that's in the vicinity of 20 to 25 individuals. But currently about 425 employees in the district, so it's about 5% of the district that would be laid off.
Superintendent, if I could ask you to just remain, are there any other questions of the superintendent?
Moderator.
Yes, sir.
I do have to make a correction to the motion as written. Thanks to Lisa Mead, our town council, being very sharp. I have to correct, would everyone look at their motion, July 1st, 2019 will be changed to 2018. That'll do it.
Okay, that's right in the middle of the appropriation of the motion language, on the middle line. Okay, thank you, Mr. Walker. Sir, go ahead.
Dale Williams, 12 Scotland Heights Drive, Newbury. First of all, I value education. I support educating every child in our town. My issue is the Triton budget has gone down 3 years in a row until this year. The Whittier budget has gone up 55% in 4 years. Essex Tech has gone up 220% in 4 years. And Triton has gone up 3% in 4 years. But this year, we want to put an override on and just peg it to Triton. I think that's unfair. I think the override probably should have been called an education override, because the costs are increasing for all 3 schools, which all of our children have the opportunity to attend. So going forward, my recommendation would be either a general override to support the town budget, or an education override. But in this year, to pin that on Triton, after 3 years of it going down, is, in my opinion,
unfair to
unfair.
Triton.
And I'm disappointed that Senator Tarr was here, but he left. And again, everybody in this...
I wish he were still here. I wish there were 40 Senator Tarrs down there. Unfortunately, there's only one out of the 40.
He's our best hope in this town to get the Chapter 70 Formula Commission redone, so thank you very much.
Great, thank you, sir. Okay, any other questions or remarks? Yes, sir.
I was standing next to Senator Tarr and got an emergency phone call. I had to walk out. I saw the text. I just wanted to defend him.
I wish I'd known he was here before he left. I'd have introduced him. Yes, sir.
My name is Frank Bertolino from Maple Terrace. I graduated Triton in 1973. 3 of my children graduated Triton. I now have 3 grandchildren in the Salisbury side of the Triton. I think it's very important that as a community that we support our first responders and our educators. Our children get up every day, they go to school, they love it, they enjoy it. They come home better than they left the house. A lot of them rely on the school system to teach them, to train them to be good humans, that they're not getting the support that they deserve at home from their families. I beg everybody in this room to think about this strongly. To vote yes, to continue on being the citizens that we are, the strong community that we are, because it shows tonight, everyone that's here, for or against, but we are a strong community. So let's please think about, deeply think about, and work with our hearts tonight and pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your remarks. Okay. I'll call the question now. All those in favor of the motion for the override, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. The ayes have it overwhelmingly. Move on to Article 12, relative to financing the ambulance service. Mr. Colby.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to remind everyone that this is only half of the job. You must show up at the polls on May 8th and vote yes as well.
Well done. Okay, a motion under Article 12.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Ambulance Enterprise Fund. Salaries and wages, $86,250. Expenses, $82,000. Debt service, $22,083. Insurance, $4,000. Indirect costs, $56,597. Extraordinary and unforeseen, $6,320. Prior year deficit, $0. Total, $257,520. And further, that $257,520 be raised as follows. Departmental receipts, $257,520.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? Mr. Thurlow.
I thought that this was part of the fire department today. Why isn't this part of the fire department's budget?
Okay.
Mr.
Gay?
It'd be a pleasure to answer your question. When the town of Newbury elected to move forward with the acquisition of Protection Fire Company number 1, and also the activities of Protection Fire Company number 2, I'm sorry, what required 2, not 1. The ambulance was set up as a special account so that we could track the income and expenses associated with just running that operation. And therefore, the state said you put in a special revolving account to look at whether this is a good business deal for the town moving forward. So any money raised by billing the patients for the services, whatever we do, they collect and it flows back into maintaining just the ambulance. That's why the distinction between the two. That one could go on for a minimum of 3 years required by once you set the account up, it's got to run 3 years. And it's designed to more or less not bury costs that you can't find in different accounts. So therefore, the ambulance services that we have, both that are in Protection Fire Company number 1 and 2, is serving the town on a very aggressive plane, and they're raising enough money to cover their costs. And that will continue until the town meeting takes action to keep it going or to stop it. So that's why it's done that way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion under the article carries. We're on to Article 13, relative to the thermal imaging cameras. Mr. Baer?
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $24,714 from free cash to purchase thermal imaging cameras.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor of the motion? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. We're on to Article 14, relative to purchasing a bucket truck for the DPW.
I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $159,981 from the stabilization fund to purchase a bucket truck. 2/3 vote required.
Motion is made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? Oh, Mr. Thurlow.
Sounds like an awful lot of money for that kind of a vehicle. Is this a brand new vehicle, or is this a reconditioned used vehicle, or what is it?
Okay, I'll answer that. Marshall Jesperson, I'm also the chair of the Capital Planning Committee. This will be a new vehicle, and it actually is down about $10,000 from the first quote that we got for the vehicle.
Okay, any other questions or observations? All those in favor of the motion to purchase the bucket truck? Aye. All those opposed? I declare that more than 2/3 have approved Article 14. Article 15, relative to repairing catch basins.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $100,000 from free cash to repair and replace catch basins and drainage pipe.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. The Article 16, relative to purchasing a front-end loader for the DPW.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $199,700 from stabilization fund to purchase a front-end loader and dispose of existing loader in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded on the purchase of the front-end loader from the stabilization funds. All those, does anyone wish to be heard? All those in favor? Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to understand, under Article 5, we just appropriated $250,000 to the stabilization fund, and then in these last two, we're just taking $360,000 out of it. So, what's going on?
There are existing funds in the stabilization. It's an account that we've put money into, so we knew coming into tonight there was $200,000 going in, and then there'd be expenditures coming out. So that was part of the plan. And the slide I showed at the beginning shows that if all of the expenditures out of stabilization are approved tonight, the balance in stabilization at the end of this meeting would be $271,114. It started out at approximately, $380,000. Then we added $200,000 to it, and then taking back down from there.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? No. The ayes have it overwhelmingly. It's more than 2/3. The Article 17, relative to funding police details. I hear a motion.
I move that the town vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 from free cash to establish a police detail reserve account.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded on establishing a police detail reserve account. Does anyone wish to be heard on the subject? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Now, the next three articles have to do in one way or another with marijuana, and I'd like to take Articles 18 and 19 together. So I'd like to get the two motions on the floor at the same time because they're so related. Then I will ask for a separate vote with respect to Article 18 and Article 19. So Article 18 is your motion.
I move the town vote to amend the Town of Newbury general bylaws by adding a new Chapter 78, marijuana, as printed in the warrant.
Second.
The motion is made and seconded, and now on Article 19.
I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Newbury zoning bylaws by amending Chapter 97 zoning, Article 5, special permits to add a new Section 97-5H, marijuana establishments as allowable by special permit in the districts identified in attachment 4, the table of use regulations as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Okay. Now we'll open it for discussion on the subject, and the presentation will be made by town council. Obviously, adopting these laws is very legalistic, and I can't think of anyone better to do it. So, Lisa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And with me this evening is the town planner as well. So this is the questions that many town meetings have this year relative to whether or not marijuana will be regulated in their communities. As you know, ballot question 4 was passed in 2016 across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and in the town of Newbury, 54.3% voted in favor of legalizing recreational marijuana. In September of 2017, the Cannabis Control Commission was appointed. on March 23rd of 2018, they promulgated regulations, and on April 1st, they began accepting applications for licenses. As of June 1st, they will start to issue their first adult use licenses, they say. I say that because they've been a little behind every time. So the statute and the regulations of the Cannabis Control Commission contemplate local control in 3 different ways. 1, anybody who applies for a license must obtain a host community agreement from the community in which they're going to be located. 2, it contemplates that there will be a local general licensing law controlled by an entity in the community. Most communities have the Board of Selectmen be the licensing authority. And 3, it allows the communities to control where the establishments would go via a zoning article. So Article 18 is the proposed general licensing article for the town of Newbury. It provides general licensing authority to the Board of Selectmen, very similar to their liquor licensing authority. It sets limitations on the number of retail licenses in accordance with what the state allows, which is 20% of the on-premises liquor licenses. So Newbury voted in favor in the general vote referendum, and so you have to round up the 20%, so that would be 2 in the town of Newbury. If you had voted against it, you would round down, so it would be 1. It allows the Board of Selectmen to adopt rules and regulations for its implementation. It requires the Board of Selectmen to hold public hearings as part of the licensing process, again, similar to liquor licenses. It provides a standard for decisions, namely that they have to take into consideration impacts on health, safety, and welfare of the public, and it provides a mechanism for enforcement. The Article 19 is the zoning article. And as you can see in the warrant, it's a much more complicated article. It's a special permit article, much like your medical marijuana article. It regulates marijuana retailers, craft marijuana cultivator cooperatives, marijuana cultivators, marijuana product manufacturers, marijuana testing facilities, and the special permit granting authority is the planning board. All of these terms are defined both in the bylaw and by statute. So in the town of Newbury, there are 2 districts that the town has determined through a public hearing process of the planning board and the Board of Selectmen where these various entities could be located, and that would be in the commercial highway district and in the business and light industrial district. A retail entity can only be located in the business light industrial district. And I think at this time I'm going to turn it over to Martha to point out, I skipped a slide. Do you want to go to the, yeah, I'll talk about the zones first. So in the zones, you take into consideration, they're going to be in the commercial the commercial highway district and the business light industrial district. The retailers are allowed by special permit in the business light industrial district. Marijuana testing, craft cultivators, and marijuana product manufacturers would be allowed by special permit in both of those districts. However, within the districts there are further limitations. So under state law, they cannot be located within 500 feet of an entity that where children commonly congregate, or schools and preschools. So for a retailer, because you're allowed to be more restrictive, the Newbury zoning bylaw says that if you're a marijuana retailer, you have to be at least 1,000 feet away from a public or private school, daycare center, or similar facility in which minors commonly congregate. If you're one of the other marijuana establishments, not a retailer, you have to be at least 500 feet from a public or private school, daycare center, or similar facility in which minors commonly congregate. And again, in the proposed bylaw, all marijuana establishments must be at least 300 feet from residential property. And just so you know, that's measured from property line to property line.
Thank you. So just to summarize, This is the Business and Light Industrial District here. It goes from the Newbury-Newburyport municipal boundary down Route 1 as far as Sled Road on the east side. And this is where the marijuana retailers are allowed, as well as the other uses that Lisa mentioned. We've identified 2 of the sensitive receptors here. Here's Newbury Elementary, which is where we are right now, as well as the Harmony Natural Learning Center, which does have a preschool and a transitional preschool program. And you can't see it very well, but there's a 1,000-foot buffer zone drawn around each of those. This is the commercial highway district portion of it that's located on Route 1, just to the east of I-95. It's where the state police barracks is and the DBW. And then this is the commercial highway in Byfield, to the northeast of the intersection of 95. And again, we've got 1 sensitive receptor there, which is the library, and that would have a 500-foot buffer zone around it.
So the proposed zoning bylaw has a number of general requirements as well that are also consistent with the Cannabis Control Commission licensing requirements. So first, of course, you have to have a license from the Cannabis Control Commission. All marijuana establishments shall operate within a fully enclosed building. No products may be displayed in the marijuana establishment's windows or visible from any street or parking lot. And then there are other provisions included within the bylaw which regards to energy efficiency, odor control, waste disposal, and security. All of those are in accordance with the Cannabis Control Commission's regulations, which are also very strict. And then in closing, I would say, because I suspect this would be one question, if either of these bylaws didn't pass, then the town, if the zoning bylaw didn't pass, it would be as if a retailer came in and could go into any retail establishment or retail zone that's allowed in the town, or similarly a light manufacturing area, and it would be just like you were in a regular situation, not with any extra special controls. It would be governed by the limitations of the Cannabis Control Commission, namely, it would have to be 500 feet from one of those special receptors, but other than that, it would fall just under your regular zoning, and there wouldn't be any oversight from the Board of Selectmen from a general licensing perspective, or special permits from the zoning board, which is what you similarly have. You actually have a special permit also with the medical marijuana. It would require a host community agreement, however.
I thank Lisa Mead and our town planner for a wonderful presentation. So if there are no further questions, Mr. Thurlow.
Yeah, sorry.
Not terribly sorry, I bet.
No, I
Martha, Martha, can you bring up the map again? All of them. Now, that one especially is a good one. I assume you've done your homework. Is there any place where one can possibly go with all those location requirements?
We've got this area up here, and also areas down farther south.
And they're more than 300 feet from residential properties? Some of them are. Do you know how many? I mean, are we talking 1 or 2 places possible in the whole town where this could happen? We're going to pass all these regulations for that?
You can only have 2 no matter what.
Oh, good. Right. Oh, good. Sorry. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay, you answered my question. Pretty good.
Good. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Susan Ricker from 17 Knob Hill in Byfield. I just don't understand zoning very well, so just bear with me if I just ask 2 questions. One, the Performing Arts Center in Byfield, I'm curious why that wouldn't be considered a place where children congregate in terms of does that have to be changed at this point to do that, or? And I have a second question. Should I ask both questions? Sure. Yeah. So one is about the Performing Arts Center, why that wouldn't be included as a place that children congregate. And just in terms of the way bylaws work, so say an establishment goes into place and a private property owner has property nearby that isn't presently, say, a nursery or daycare, does that mean no one can then, does that now restrict the use of that private property? So, because they would...
No, it's in existence at the time the license is issued, and so then it wouldn't put restrictions on the person wanting to move in afterwards. It only is when the license is issued.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not sure, Martha, what the public hearing process was around the Performing Arts Center, except for that it's not, it wouldn't be considered typical like a school or a daycare center or something like that. And I might add to Mr. Thurlow's earlier question, if this doesn't pass, you won't be limited to 2. You would be unlimited.
Yeah, she was saying the Performing Arts Center is in the area that she was pointing out, and I can't read the map very well. What is that area?
So that's in the Byfield Village Business District, and we're not talking about any area over here where it would even be allowed. So I think it would be outside of that buffer zone in any case, even if we were to designate that as a special sensitive receptor.
Okay. Sir?
Glenn DeArmond, 243 High Road. I am wondering if what the potential would be for even amending the proposed bylaw to allow cultivation in agricultural areas, as opposed to limiting it to an industrial site where it would have these.
So this was a subject matter of the planning board hearings. Even if it were in an agricultural area, you would still have to have it enclosed and all of the things that are required. So I'm not sure what the comments were at the planning board public hearing related to that. You might know that there's a specific exemption under the exemptions of Chapter 48, Section 3 that says that these cultivation facilities do not qualify for the agricultural exemption under General Law Chapter 48, Section 3.
So according to Massachusetts general law,
correct.
It's not.
It would not be exempt. No, they specifically amended that last year.
So, okay.
Bill Cooper, 35 High Road. I'm here to speak in favor of the amendment or the article. You may recall I stood up here at the last town meeting and suggested that we put a hold on a moratorium because I think there's an opportunity for the town to get revenue from this new industry. So I think the planning board has done their due diligence. I became a student of the regulations over the last few months. I've read every one of the 200 plus pages of the legislation, and this very much is in alignment with the State and Cannabis Control Commission regulations and requirements. And I think it's fully supportive of that, and we ought to vote it in so that we have the teeth that we need in the town to support the industry.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, any further questions? I think we can get to voting, and we'll take it separately with respect to the two articles. Article 18 is the one relative to authorizing the selectmen to issue permits for marijuana establishments and prohibiting operation without a permit. Okay. So all those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The next one is Article 19, which is establishing the zoning bylaw within which marijuana establishments have to be located, where they can be and where they cannot be. And we've heard that discussed at great length. There aren't a lot of places, but there are some. And all those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, adopting the zoning bylaw unanimously. And now we're on to Article 20, which I believe
I
is...
move that the town vote to accept the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 64N, Section 3, and impose a sales tax of the sale or transfer of marijuana or marijuana products by a marijuana retailer operating in the town of Newbury.
Second.
3. Oh, I'm sorry. And it would be a 3% sales tax.
Second.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded to provide for a 3% sales tax on the sales of marijuana.
Where was that money allocated?
Sorry, what? I'm sorry. Can you come? I cannot hear you. Can you come to a mic?
Where was that money allocated to? The 3% tax?
Oh.
The money is collected by the state, it comes back to the town, and then it goes into the general fund, so it would be appropriated at town meeting.
Okay. All those in favor of the 3% sales tax article? All those opposed? The ayes have it. And we have one final article. So 21.
I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Newbury general bylaws by amending Chapter 87, Stormwater Management and Illicit Discharge and Erosion Control as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions relative to it? Yes, sir.
Can somebody explain what MS4 is, please?
John, can you speak to that, please?
Thanks, Fred. I really appreciate it.
John, the speaker is John O'Connell, who will attempt to answer the question.
Chair of the Stormwater Committee. MS4 is the name of the EPA-mandated stormwater management program that was referred to earlier. This is not something that we dreamed up. It is something that if we don't do it has serious consequences. The MS4 stands for Municipal Small Storm Sewer Systems. There's 4 S's and 1 M. The M is municipal, everything else is an S. And that's, MS4 is simply an abbreviation for that. And that's a program that in a smaller way has been with us since, oh Lord, back in the 90s. And I first got involved in this new program that has been talked about in the fall of 2010. And we were advised by EPA that it would start in 2 or 3 months. It has yet to start.
Second part of the question. How does this affect agriculture?
This amendment, I don't see it affecting agriculture at all. It is simply a housekeeping thing where town council saw that the earlier, this has been around since, it's been around 15 years at least. Lisa found some inconsistencies in the language, and she's simply clearing them up. And as far as how does it affect agriculture, it improves it. You know, anything that cleans up water, you can't say it's a bad thing.
Yeah, agriculture plows land.
Yeah. So,
I couldn't agree more, Greg.
yeah, well, yeah, no, it's not that ridiculous. There's nothing in any of the legislation, the bylaws, or the rules and regulations that inhibits the activities of farmers.
Okay.
Unless their name's Thorold.
Thank you, John. Okay, I'm calling the question. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, over unanimously. And we have disposed of all of the business of both the annual town meeting and the special town meeting. I would ask for a motion to dissolve both town meetings. And both. The motion, okay. The motion's made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the meetings are dissolved.